going to go over installing a testing server. This is specifically for someone who already has a Dayz server with a hosting company, but they want to test scripts on their own computer. It's a lot more convenient. It makes it pretty easy to do because you've already got Operation Arrowhead and Arma 2 installed. You've got the mods installed, whatever mods you're going to use. So all you really need to do is add the startup batch file and the configuration files, and of course the MySQL server. Now, I have on my website, I'm going to have a link to this video and to the files, and it's going to have a MySQL server in it. If you don't want to use that one or you want to download a different one, if you go to dev.mysql.com, that's at the Oracle site, and you can download any version that you want. I download this here. When you click on download, it'll tell you log in, sign up. Down here in the bottom, there's a no, just start my download. Now, there's something, when you get a fresh installation of MySQL, the database has to be initialized. Now, I've already initialized this one with the data. You can delete it whenever you want to start fresh, delete all the files in this data folder, but then you have to run all these files. These bat files are just, they run the MySQL D for the daemon, MySQL daemon. And this one here has, let's see, we're in it with Notepad. This is MySQL D initialize insecure. Insecure means the root has no password. You don't need a password because you're using it on your computer. If you end up using this on a VPS and a public computer, you're going to want to delete the root user, create a different one, and have passwords. The other file to run the MySQL, this has console, and that means that it stays open so that you can see it. So we don't need those two. The other thing here at the communitybistudio.com, the wiki, you have the startup parameters. We'll tell you exactly how to start your server. This here is a kind of customized one. If the MySQL server is not running, it will start it, and then it kills any currently running server, and then we'll start it up with the parameters that we use here. So you can, this is pretty much a generic one. You got the mod, whatever mod you're going to run, Dayz Epoch, Dayz Epoch server. If you're running Dayz, you're going to use Dayz and Hive. They have to match whatever you have in your folder. And this bat file is going in your Arma 2 Operation Arrowhead. It also needs to load Arma 2. So you have to have, because there's a space, you have to have the in quotes whenever there's a space. So if you got a space in any of these names right here, like you put a space right there, you would have to put this whole thing into quotes then. That's why it's a lot easier just to do that. All right, so it loads the Dayz Epoch server, and then Arma 2. The name, this is the name of the user that's going to be running the server. It's testing. The config, it looks for what folder are we going to have our config files in. So we got it in Dayz CFG, a testing folder, and we're going to start the server config. And then we have to have our basic config. So the same thing, Dayz testing, basic config. And your profiles is where we save the user profiles. So it goes in the testing folder. This is where you're going to put your difficulty settings. And I can show you that here in a little bit. So the server config has all the settings for the server name and which mission to load. It's very important. This one here, I've never edited a basic CFG file. I suppose you could for particular instances, but all right, let's see. So the server config is also, all the information here is at Community BIOS Studio. And you can click on which one you want. Steam ports. And, here you go, all the possible settings. And of course, the most important one is class missions. Let me show you. Here it is. Dayz config. Down here in the bottom, you can name this class missions. You can name the class here for whatever you want. If you had multiple missions, it would have a class name. All right, but so you name it whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Okay, this is very important. Template, this means mission. Which mission is going to load? This must match the mission in your MP missions folder, and it must exist. I always, on a testing server, turn off BattleEye. And there's not a lot to set up other than that. Okay, another thing that is important in the config folder is the hive ext.ini file. This is the information to connect to your database. Down here in the database, it's got the host type is MySQL, port. Whatever database name you give it must be here. Whatever usernames and passwords must be here. It must match. And we'll set up a database here in a minute. Like I said, basic we never turn full with. Here in the users was the testing. This one right here, this is where it has your difficulty settings for recruit, regular, veteran. Whether you want to allow people to have third-person view, whether they can always have the map on. The weapon cursor is that stupid little X in the middle, so you don't have to aim down the sights. Okay, so I think we got this pretty well all set. So what I've got here is I've got my Steam folder, and Arma 2 and Arma 2 Operation Arrowhead are in Steam, Steam Apps, Common, and here's Operation Arrowhead. So everything is going to go in here. If I've been playing on a server, I've already got the mod. You got an MP missions folder, it's empty. Here's your server. When you install Arma 2 Operation Arrowhead, you have the server. So here's my testing server. This is everything I got. And I'll show you how we'll install Dayz also. Okay, so this has got the hiveext.dll file in the server. We just copy this over here. This was the Dayz config folder. This has your server.cfg in it. We copy this over here. Keys, you should have the keys already, because otherwise you probably couldn't play on the server, but copy the keys over. Okay, MP missions, copy the MP missions that you need into your MP missions in Operation Arrowhead. Now this Visual C redistributables, your computer should be okay because you're running Operation Arrowhead. If you're going to install this on a VPS, you probably have to install all these as well as DirectX. These database files right here, or DLL, in the memory files. These are specific to the mod. So if you're installing Dayz Epoch, they will be in the, so this is the download for that I downloaded off the internet for Epoch server. These are the DLLs. And here's for Dayz. You'll see database is 3840 here, is 3000 here. The TBB is different, as well as the malloc. So yeah, I mean, you have to make sure that you use the correct database files. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to connect to the database. Now, what I do when let's get back to the server. What I do is when I have multiple things that I want to run, so suppose I have Epoch and I have the Epoch server, I put these in the Epoch server folder, and then in my start over in my bat file, at the very top of it, I just copy all the DLLs from the Epoch server into the root. And so then if I have a start dayz.bat, I copy all the DLLs from the Hive into here. So if you're only going to use one mod, which is most people, just copy these that are given to you with your downloads. Okay, we need the startup file, the batch file. Now the big one is the MySQL. Now, just copy this over. Now, as I said, if you want to start all over, you have to delete all the files in the data folder. And then you have to run MySQL init, which is MySQL D hyphen whatever it said there, I forget, initialize server. And this is what we use to start the server. Now I should have this in right here. I don't have the batch file. I have in this startup is it looks to see if the MySQL D is running. If not, then it goes down into the bind and it starts it. This is the startup command for the MySQL server. The console keeps the window open. So, oh, one other thing to remember, your Operation Arrowhead, the client, must be running before you start the server, because the server, you can only run one copy of Operation Arrowhead. So if the server's running, then Operation Arrowhead thinks that there's another copy running, so it won't start. So always start your copy first, and then you can start and stop the server, which is beneficial because when you are making edits, you can stop the server and restart it quickly. So we should be all set here. All right, let's see my batch file. See here, I got the Dayz Epoch with the correct name. This is something I always do. Make sure that the mods you're loading match the file names. Dayz Epoch 1062, Dayz Epoch server, and then period goes up a folder to ARMA 2. And because there's a space, I have to have that in quotes. So now, oh, one other thing. We did not create the database for the server yet. So let's go over that. There's something that you can download here is the MySQL Workbench. Let's see, downloads, Workbench, MySQL Workbench. Community Edition. MySQL Workbench of the Community Edition. And this works awesome. So let's start the MySQL server with the, I've already run the init, so it's empty, and it has a user ID of root with no password. And here we go. Our server is up. It's running. Now I'm going to start MySQL Workbench. Let me delete this. And we'll start right from scratch. So when it starts up, this is what you got. You click on plus sign, new connection, Dayz server. Username is root, test connection, and it, because the connection, there's no password for the root, it works. So if I connect, I'm going to be able to, did I hit connect? I don't know. No, I just hit OK to save that, I guess. There we go. All right, so now I have no database. This is the system for MySQL. So I need to click up here, create a database. I'm going to call it, a schema is the same as database. Dayz epoch, hit apply, finish. I'm going to right click on this and make it the default. Now what I need is, I need to have a user. So I click on users and privileges. I'm going to add an account, login name, Dayz. Remember on the hivxt.ini, we had to have a username and a password, and it was, the default is Dayz. Now, limit to host matching. We don't want anybody to be able to connect from anywhere. It's only people on this computer. So we type in localhost, and the password is Dayz. And schema privileges, we will add an entry, and we will let them have Dayz epoch, and we're going to select all. So now Dayz user has all privileges on, oh, I didn't put it. So now Dayz user has privileges on Dayz epoch. Okay, so now the next thing, we can delete these little windows. Now the next thing is this queries right here. When you get a download, here's the Dayz mod. They always got a little line that says SQL. Here's all the SQL. This is the problem with Dayz. They didn't put them all into one. So you have to, let's see if we can select. Yeah, okay. We can drag them all over there for Dayz. And then run each one. I should have tested that after. Should have tested it with just 2. Can I close all? Close all. Query. Okay, so since I'm using epoch, where did I downloaded it right here. This is the download. And in my SQL, I just got this. These are the updates. So I drag this one over. See, one file. And I hit the lightning bolt to execute it. And there it goes. So if you're doing Dayz, you have to drag them all over. And I don't know if you can execute them all at once. If there's a... No, you're probably going to have to execute, but you can drag them all over and then execute them one at a time. And each one of these files is creating all the tables down here in the stored procedures. So All these traders, there's a lot of shit in that traders. Okay. Is it done? Must be done. Okay, so now add recommended MySQL events, which deletes the vehicles that haven't been used and whatnot. So now I can delete those. So now if I hit right click and refresh, refresh all, now I have the tables. Character data, player data, there's nothing in them. If I right click and select the rows, see they're all empty because nobody's played on here yet, but the server traders, there's all the servers. Okay, so that's the end of that. So we got the server running. All right, let's see if this starts up now. Let's see, where am I? I don't need that anymore. I don't need the testing server. I need operation arrowhead. Let's see. See, my SQL is already running. If it wasn't running, the bat file would have started it up. Okay, there it is. Game port 2302. Come down here. I hit multiplayer. I've already got my address in LAN. There's probably internet. So you just click this, go to search LAN. Here's my testing server. And restart. Okay. And it tells me there I'm joining. And now it's loading the mission, and man, the first person, if you've been running the server, I don't know if you realize this until you do it right in front of you. It takes a long time to get this server started. And what you'll see here is a window open up, and it will be scrolling all the data that it loads. See, the game starts up right now. It tells you up here, games. Tells you up here, game started. But it's waiting for the server to start authentication, because the database is not, the server has to start connecting to the database and streaming all these objects. There it is, the new window. So now it's got this first one, object stream start. Now it's got to wait another, sometimes it'll time out on the first player. See, it's retrying the authentication. So until that window starts streaming, it's not going to connect. So in ARMA 3, it changed the method so that it would actually start the server and be ready to accept connections. See, there we go. Once it starts streaming all the data, now we're getting our character data from the server. There I am. So I think that's it. But the only thing that's going to be different is if you wanted to install this onto a VPS, that is, you're going to install ARMA 2 and ARMA 2 Operation Arrowhead, and you'll use the Steam forget what they call it. Anyways, it's a console application that'll install. I'll have another video on that. And the only thing you'd have to do is install the Visual Studio redistributables and the DirectX. And there you go.